What's up, you guys? Welcome back to the Ultum Nature Systems channel. Today I'm going to be setting up the new all-in-one plant holding system display stand, as well as setting up the plant holding system display tanks. And I'm going to give you guys a quick rundown on what the plumbing does and how it works. So let's get into it. So start by grabbing your vertical bars and position them on the ground. And what's important about this is make sure that these slots are facing in towards each other, and the side with the two slots closest to each other are at the far end like this. So you want to have slots running parallel like this, with the slots on the long side facing upwards. I'm going to grab my short horizontal bars without the pipe holders on them, and starting at the bottom of the stand or the side with the two slots cut close to each other, I'm going to position these horizontal bars with the ridge facing upwards. So placing it like that. And I'm going to repeat this step for all of these slots that run parallel to each other. So with the ridge facing upwards, placing them where they're going to get screwed into position. Then using your assembly tool, insert the horizontal bars into the vertical ones, and in a clockwise motion, twist the tool to lock the bars into place. Repeat the same steps for the other side. So that's going to be it for the assembly of this piece. Double check that all of your ridges are facing up towards the top of the stand and place it to the side for now. So repeat the same thing for the next part with the vertical bars laid on the ground, with the slots being parallel to each other, and the two slots that are close to each other are going to be facing farthest away, and this is going to be the bottom of this side as well. Then I'm going to grab two of the horizontal bars, the last two remaining ones without the pipe holders on them, and I'm going to place them with the ridges facing up on the bottom as well as the top. So it's going to look something like this laying on the ground right now. For the next step, I'm just going to be fastening one side of these short horizontal bars. So I'm going to insert them into the slots, and I'm just going to fasten the left side for now of both the top and the bottom bars. I'm going to flip this assembly so far, so it's facing with the ridge side up. Next, grab your short horizontal bars with the pipe holders, and with the ridge side facing up, I'm going to line them up with the slot cutouts on the vertical bar. And how I'm going to do this, I'm going to place the one with the two pipe holders in the middle and the lowest slot. So these will go here. And then the one with the singular pipe holder will be at the top slot. So now that I have the pipe holders positioned correctly, I'm going to turn our assembly onto its side like this. And then one by one, I'm going to insert the horizontal bars with the pipe holders into the vertical piece and tighten them into position. Next, you're going to want to grab the last remaining vertical bar that we positioned earlier and place this on top of our assembly very carefully, making sure all these slots are lined up correctly, and then using the tool, tighten these into position. So that is it for this part of the assembly as well, and double check that all of your ridges are facing up, and this is the orientation of the pipe holders. Two, and then the one single one at the top. I'm going to place this to the side for now, and I'm going to grab the previous assembly that we just finished, the other vertical ladder, and we can start the assembly from there. So grabbing the first assembly that we did, I'm going to place this on the ground, again with the bottom facing away from us. I'm going to grab the two long horizontal bars, and I'm going to insert them with the ridge facing up into the bottom slots of our assembly. And then using the tool, I'm going to fasten them into position. And make sure they're flush against the outer edge. They might slip a little bit before you screw them in, so just, again, double check that they're flush. Repeat the same thing for the other side with the fasteners facing inwards and the ridge facing up. Again, making sure it's flush with the outer and bottom edge. Next, grab your horizontal shelves with the nano foam mat on the top And I'm gonna insert these into the 3 slots that are cut into the middle. So I'm gonna start this at the lower one here. And I'm just gonna place all of these in before I tighten them. Again, just double checking that the nanofoam mat is facing upwards. Now that these shelves are inserted, I'm gonna use the included tool and I'm gonna fully tighten all of the fasteners that are now in proper position. So I'm gonna start here. And again, using a clockwise motion, just tighten these into place. Next, I'm gonna grab the last horizontal shelf with no nanofoam mat on top, and I'm gonna place this with the ridges facing up into the utmost slot on our vertical assembly. Then, using the included tool, I'm gonna tighten these into place, making sure that it sits completely flush with what we built so far. Then I'm gonna grab our other vertical assembly with the pipe holders on it, and I'm gonna gently and slowly place this on top of our complete shelf assembly and line up the cutouts on this assembly with what is on our assembly so far, making sure everything sits flush. Now that this is on top and sitting completely flush, I'm gonna use the included tool and I'm gonna fasten all of the fasteners, ensuring that this is one snug fitting assembly. Another thing to note is completely check that all of the fasteners are fully tightened before putting the display tanks on. We already did this off camera, but if you're following along, this is the time at which you're gonna wanna do this now. And what I'm gonna wanna do before I put the glass display tanks onto the stand is install the light hanging brackets. You are gonna want to get a drill with a Phillips head attachment and put the screw on it. Place the light bracket in the center of the horizontal bars and slowly drill them in. So one thing that's important is to not over tighten this screw because you can strip the hole that you tapped. So really just drill it in very slowly, making sure it's straight. And as I said previously, do not over tighten because it will strip the hole and come loose. So now that we've screwed in one side of our light hanging bars, what we're gonna wanna do is slide your light onto them like this. And then now that the light is resting on the 2 bars, we can screw them in from the bottom and lock them into place with the light sitting on top. So it'll be like this. And you're gonna wanna repeat this on both the middle and the top horizontal bars as well. For the sake of the video, I'm going to be taking the lights off just so it's a bit easier to demonstrate the plumbing. And the next thing you're gonna wanna do is put the tanks on. But one thing before you do that is make sure that none of the aluminum chips from drilling these holes land on your mats just to prevent any sort of scratching. So make sure they're wiped down, make sure they're clean. So me and John are gonna pick up the tanks and we're gonna place them with the overflow on the left side. So the back is facing these pipe holders that we installed on the aluminum stand. And take your time, they are heavy, so be careful so you don't damage yourself or the tanks. And the nice thing about the nanofoam mats that we have on the display stand is that you can just place the tanks onto them and then slide them back into position. You don't have to lift them up and back. So it just makes the assembly of this a little bit easier. So I took all of the plumbing out of the display tanks and put them in their respective boxes. So we have 3.1, 3.2, and 3.3. 3.3 is going to be the top tank with 3.1 being the bottom one, so 3.2 is the middle. So the first thing you're gonna wanna do is grab this piece that comes pre-assembled with the 3-way valve, and we're gonna undo the unions that are here at the end of this long horizontal pipe. And make sure that you aren't losing any O-rings when you're doing this, as well as this union here, and this one here. Take this piece that we just unscrewed from the 3-way valve, and we're gonna insert this into this hole here, screw on the bulkhead on top, making sure that the O-ring and gasket are still in place just to prevent any sort of leaking. The next thing you wanna do is grab this piece with the spray bar as well as the duckbill return nozzle. We're gonna insert this into the display and push this onto the piece that we just screwed into the tank. Should look like this. Next, grab and unscrew this piece, which is the elbow and the union. It'll look like this. And what you're gonna wanna do is put the elbow onto the top of the tank and the union on the bottom, and fully hand tighten this And you're gonna wanna tighten this through the bottom of the tank just because you can't really spin the elbow around that's in the display. Again, just making sure that O-rings and gaskets are in the right places and that this is fully hand tightened. Then grab this spray bar that should be in the box. And this is the one with the stopper on one end. And we're gonna insert this into the elbow that we just put inside of the display. Making sure that the holes on the spray bar are facing to the right. Then you're gonna wanna grab this piece that was also connected to the three-way valve. Unscrew the two parts from one another, just so you have the bulkhead, male and female. You're gonna wanna insert the male into the farthest small hole in the display tank and tighten this one in the overflow box, like that. Make sure it's fully hand tightened and make sure that the union is facing this way. Then you're gonna grab this big pipe with the drain on it, and we're gonna wanna unscrew this drain from the union that holds it to the pipe, so you have a piece like this. Unscrew the two parts of the drain from one another, like this, and insert this into this hole located here. It's a little tricky, you may need to move the spray bar out of the way. And fully hand tighten this one here. Again, making sure that the gasket is in place just to prevent any sort of leaking. Then you're gonna wanna grab this drain here, and note that this will look different depending on what tank you're assembling. For the top tank, tank 3, it will look like this. And for the bottom tank, tank 1, it will look like this. Unscrew the drain from this part. And insert the drain into the pre-cut hole in the overflow. Again, making sure the gasket's in place so there's no leaks. Fully hand tighten this as well. Next, grab the main drain piece like this. And again, this will look different depending on which tank you're assembling. And make sure the union is at the top of this long pipe. Then snap it into place against the display stand like this. Screw the union of this piece into the drain that we assembled in the last step. Make sure that the O-rings are in place and make sure this is fully hand tightened. Then grab the long pipe that looks like this and screw this in to the drain on the right of the tank. Make sure that there's no tape holding the O-rings into place on these joints either. Then attach the other union to the main drain. Grab the piece with the three-way valve and the long, narrow pipe. And screw the unions located here and here onto the valve. And then tighten the elbow that feeds into the return plumbing on the other side. Again, making sure it's fully hand tightened. Next, we're going to be inserting a pump into the overflow of these tanks. For this, we're using a Sicce Syncra Pro 4000, and you're going to want to unscrew the barb attachment if this is the pump that you are using. So I'm just going to slowly insert this pump into the first chamber here. Should be like that. I'm going to run the power cord through the hole. And out of the back, just for a bit cleaner of a look. And I'm gonna re-screw on the barb. I'm gonna then grab this piece with the two elbows and two pieces of soft tubing, as well as the solid PVC here. And I'm gonna insert this with the soft tubing onto the barb of our return pump, and then the hard PVC into the bulkhead that we inserted in the earlier steps of this assembly. And you may need to cut this piece of soft tubing that runs vertically, just in case you're using a larger pump. You don't want there to be any kinks in the soft tubing of this assembly, just to prevent any sort of restrictions on the flow. So I'm gonna take about 1.5 centimeters off of this piece. And then I'm gonna insert it onto my return pump. The overflow assembly should look something like this. And the final piece of this tank is the return pipe. This is for filling up your tank again through one singular piece of tubing. I'm gonna do the exact same assembly for the top and bottom, and then I'm gonna show you guys where the plumbing differs from each tank to another at the very end. And the last thing we have to do is assemble the return plumbing. This is the plumbing for filling up your tank through one central plumbing line. And this comes in 3 pieces. So it has a piece with 2 elbows and 2 ball valves like this. And this one simply attaches through the union to the other elbow and ball valve like this. Make sure it's completely hand tightened. And then what you're gonna wanna do is place this onto your display using the clip that we haven't used yet on the right side of our central plumbing. We're just gonna snap this into place like this. Make sure to lower it like so. And the last piece that comes with this is this union to barbed elbow right here. And what you're gonna wanna do is screw this onto the bottom. This is for attaching a hose to, so again, if you're looking to fill up all of these display tanks at once, you would attach a hose to this barb. You may need to lower these lines a little bit. And then using the pipe holder, clip the straight pipe to the elbow like that. So that is it for the plumbing of this triple decker all-in-one plant holding system. Make sure that all unions are fully tightened. I can't stress this enough. Nothing's worse than springing a leak when you're done with all the plumbing. And make sure all the gaskets and O-rings are undamaged and in the right place. This is the acrylic filter floss holder. And you'll notice that each of these has a paper film on top. You're gonna wanna remove these. So now that we took the film off of the acrylic tray, you can insert it into the back chamber, and it just sits on the 2 acrylic railings that are inside. And it has corner cutouts to allow for your pump wire to run out of the tank without it propping up this tray. And then once the tray is in, you can get your filter floss and just set it on top of the tray. And this makes doing maintenance on these super easy. You just pull the filter floss out and rinse it, wash it to get the plant matter off. So these are the standard acrylic pot holder. There should be 3 that look like this. You will find that one of them in each bag is gonna be slightly different, and that's the one with this cutout here. This one is cut like this just to dodge some of the plumbing that's gonna be inside the tank, so it'll sit like this inside of the system. Each bag will also come with legs. There will be 16 of these longer ones, as well as 8 of these shorter ones, and you're just gonna screw these into the pre-cut threaded holes that are on each of these acrylic trays. And on these trays, the textured side is what's supposed to face up. So screw the legs into the glossy side. So we're gonna put the plant trays in this center tank here, and we opted for 1 long and 1 short leg for the 2 that are going in the back. But it's totally up to you. It's totally up to your store, depending on how you want to view your potted plants. So these go in the back there. And then for the 2 in the front, we opted for just 1 long leg for each of the cutouts. And as mentioned previously, the tray with the cutout goes on the right, and then your last standard one goes on the left like that. So plant trays are in. I'm now gonna be flooding this middle tank here, and I'll give you guys a rundown on the plumbing, how it works, why we chose to do what we do, and just tips for general operation. And one thing before you flood is make sure that all of the ball valves to the drains are closed, And then make sure you only have the ball valve on the return plumbing to the tank that you're trying to fill open. So for that one, that'll be this one here. Double check that all unions and bulkheads are securely tightened first too, just to prevent any sort of leaking that'll be difficult to address once the tank is filled. So I'm gonna attach a piece of soft tubing to our return line's barb. And then I'm gonna plug in the pump and start filling this tank. And then just turn the ball valve of the tank that you're trying to fill. So we have our pump plugged in. We got water coming. You can hear it coming up the pipes. And it should start filling up the tank. So the first thing you might notice is that we installed a long piece of flexible hose to the large barb that is plumbed into the main drain. And I'll show you guys how to use that later. But first, I wanna go over how we're gonna add CO2 to this plant holding system. We have a in-line CO2 diffuser, as well as the 2 pieces of soft tubing attached to the 2 elbows that fit into the back chamber that I showed you how to install earlier. So I'm gonna pull this out, and then I'm gonna cut straight down the center using a pair of sharp scissors. And then I'm gonna grab our inline CO2 diffuser and connect it to the 2 pieces of soft tubing. And then use the fasteners on the CO2 diffuser to tighten it into place. So fully assembled the inline CO2 diffuser on the overflow plumbing should look something like this. I'm gonna be installing the inline CO diffuser on all 3 of these display tanks. An installation of this after you have it into the soft tubing is pretty much exactly the same as before. You're just gonna insert it into the bulkhead inside of the first chamber. So we attach the CO2 tubing to the inline diffuser, and it is a bit easier if you pop it off of the soft tubing before you install it. And we ran it underneath this baffle into this refill chamber and out through the back of the tank. And this is just so it doesn't accidentally knock up your filter tray. Once the CO2 tubing is on your inline diffuser, plug it into your CO2 adapter, and then plug in the solenoid. This works perfectly with our Pro regulator or multi-stage regulator, but for this we're gonna use a mini just for the sake of this demonstration, but you would be running 3 of the regulator valves plumbed into 3 tanks. So now that we have our inline CO2 diffuser plugged in, you'll notice micro bubbles coming out of the duckbill nozzle on the right side once your pump is turned on. This is what we recommend for CO2 diffusion in these tanks. We find that it gives to superior coverage and superior diffusion compared to the typical diffusers that you'll hang on the side of the glass. So this is what we recommend. So now that this tank is flooded and we've gone over CO2, I'm gonna go over the plumbing, and the thing I'm gonna start with is the main drain. It's super simple to use this. What you're just gonna do is flip this ball valve here, and this will cause water to drain from the 2 drain bulkheads located inside the overflow and the main tank. So I'm gonna give this a quick turn. And again, we recommend plumbing this outside onto your lawn or something like that, or even into a drain that you may have in your building. So when you turn this ball valve, it'll start draining these tanks from the bottom. And we chose to have the bulkhead drains because it'll suck up all the detritus that builds up, all the dead plant matter on the bottom of the tank. So just a little demonstration. You can hear the water draining from the tank. And again, we ran ours outside. So the central control point for the plumbing of this system is this 3-way valve here. This is how you determine which mode of operation you are using. So this is the primary mode with it up and down with the arrows pointing left and right. This is what we call standard flow. And what this does is it directs flow through this duckbill right here, as well as the short horizontal spray bar that's to the right of it. This provides flow to the tops of your stem plants. This is gonna blast dead leaves and debris off of the plants themselves, and then water will flush. It'll come over the top of this baffle here and into your overflow chamber, landing on your filter floss. Turning the ball valve located here before the duckbill nozzle will force water through the spray bar to the right. And what this will do is push detritus on the bottom of your tank to the left, and then it will go through the cutout on the bottom of the overflow, up and into the filter floss. It shuts off flow to the duckbill nozzle and forces all the water through the spray bar. If you turn the three-way valve to the right, this will activate the other method of flow that we call the flush mode. And what this does is it pushes water through the spray bar on the left next to the overflow box to the right. And then if you open up the main drain, all the detritus will get sucked through this bulkhead drain located here. This is good for clearing out your systems if you're doing water changes. It helps kind of clear up some of the detritus that's hard to get normally. And that's gonna be it for this video, you guys. I hope you enjoyed the assembly and product rundown of this triple-decker all-in-one plant holding system. Stay tuned for future content and future product releases. I hope you found this video informative, and I will see you guys in the next one.